circumvent.
Yeah, I thought of that, but that's about this.
Oh, not the creative.
What are you doing, Michelle?
It's very clear, so that's. Mike knows. And this and this land. Yeah. No, that's better. They're next door. Oh, yeah, we used to have those labor for retirement. They had insurance. Yeah, they should.
You got an agenda? I suppose I could have done that. Where's your class? Is there something you want to hand out?
Well, yeah, in a second, it's.
Oh, I'm not ready.
Or remind me of when I used that.
Ready? Michelle?
Yep, I'm about ready.
We'll call the special town board meeting to order Sunday, September 29th, 4 p.m., located at the Palmyra Town Hall, W1125, Highway 106, Palmyra, Wisconsin. First comment I'm going to make is this: we're not in the habit of setting Sunday meetings. We're under some time constraints here, and this has to be discussed. Certification of compliance with open meetings law.
Yes, I posted and I posted on the website.
Roll call.
Gajewski,
Here.
Martins,
Here.
Sauter.
Here. Pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number one, discussion regarding the state's change in personal property tax assessment regulations, which have now caused assessment of the airport hangars to be classified as real estate property versus personal property. The effect on the town as the owner of the airport land and the elimination of personal property tax bills for the hangars. Discussion to develop possible solutions. Discussion will include possibility of hiring of a county surveyor to create separate real estate descriptions to allow for filing of documentation to have separate tax bills for the hangars, and discussion regarding fees for the service and who will fund those costs. Other potential solutions will also be considered. Possible direction on how to handle this issue. All documentation must be completed and recorded at the Register of Deeds office by October 30th. That's why we're meeting today. This is a process.
So what happens if it isn't?
If it isn't recorded by the end of October and all the legal descriptions are not created, the town will get a bill for the full assessed value of all the hangars. And depending on how you guys decide to handle, we will be responsible for the payment to the village. The bill will be issued in our name.
Can you give us an update on what you've been told?
Some people I haven't seen here before, so they may not know. The state changed the law on how the hangars are assessed. They used to be assessed as personal property tax, and that was pretty easy because the county would just issue each hangar owner their own bill. You guys paid the village, all was well. We as a town really weren't involved in it at all. And what has changed now is the state has decided personal property tax is going away. So in order to tax your hangars, they've moved it to real estate. And the village assessor stopped by a couple weeks ago and popped in and said he was here looking at all of the hangars and that he would let us know the assessed values and that the county would bill all of them. Well, through a series of weeks of conversation, the county is not going to do that unless we have a separate legal description for each parcel. And they have to do that in order to issue a tax parcel number and subsequently a tax bill. So in order to do that, we would have to have them surveyed. And I knew from the beginning that's very expensive. But the county had volunteered to use their surveyors, and they will charge a lower rate because they want to help the communities that do have municipal airports. Their fee is $65 an hour to do the assessment, which I know sounds like a lot of money, but for that type of task, it's not in today's world. And then we would also have to, regardless, we'd have to pay recording fees to have these documentations recorded at the Register of Deeds. So we just found out, I believe it was Thursday, that the cost of that, I believe it was $5,200 for the surveying fees, and then we estimated $1,500 in recording fees. It could be a little bit more, a little bit less. So $5,200 and that's $6,700 just to get those bills separated. And we have to have it all done and sealed up by the end of the month. And of course, we're dealing with October weather uncertainty. And the surveyors will take about 2 weeks to do it.
Okay, if we say yes to that, what is the first thing you're going to do? What's the first steps?
What am I going to do? I'm going to call the county surveyor and say, what do you need? We're in the process right now. Jeff has given us the leases. We're scanning them in, and we are getting copies of them so we know what we have. And then the county surveyor will get going, and I'll do whatever he says next. And then if that happens, we're going to be working pretty fast to get everything recorded.
Again, that's why we're meeting today, folks. We gotta make a decision and get it rolling. Discussion?
Do we know whether or not October 30th of, let's say, 2025 would also be a date we could shoot for?
We probably could, I didn't ask that, we probably could delay a year. We would have to determine what we're going to do with the tax bill that comes, yeah.
So, if we delayed it a year, we still gotta pay the, right now, give us that estimate again, the way that the mill rate is at this point, what you estimate the total taxes for all the hangars.
It was over $20,000. We don't know what the mill rate's going to be. We do believe it's certain the village's mill rate's going to go down because they just got reassessed this year. So that, and they haven't been reassessed for a while, so their mill rate will go down. It's hard to say. I can tell you the total assessed value they gave me that all the hangars will be assessed at is $1,253,500, and many of the hangar owners, we've been waiting for attorney decision on how we have to notify. If you want to pass a few of those out, these are the assessment changes for those people. In the past, through the personal property, they were assessed for $525,200. So it's more than doubled.
So what you're saying, just using hangar number one, the flying color, was assessed last year 23 at 38.7, and now the new assessment is 48,500.
That's what I'm saying now. And these numbers I got from Lori at the village. She sent me last year's personal property tax bills. And then the assessor sent me his little crib sheet on what the new ones should be. And I created a spreadsheet.
Yeah, do you know how they created these new assessments? I mean, they've done questions, some of them, I see some jumping from 3,700 to 29,000.
He did come and look at each of them. I assume that some probably, I believe some have floors, some have dirt floors, some have, I don't know. That is one of the issues, is we haven't talked to the assessor about that, but.
So will it be up to the individual hangar owner to appeal?
We don't
this?
know. That's a very interesting question, because normally people have appeal rights, and we did not get our assessment notices the village, as the town either, but somebody said something to me, and I caught on to it when I started looking into it. Oh, someone at the county said something to me about the village's open book, and I thought, geez, I wonder what's going on with these assessment notices, and then we started looking into it. It never got here. We looked in the book. We have a P.O. box. It didn't have that number on there, but it did say airport. But I talked to Jeff. Jeff did not get it either. They also have a P.O. box, so who knows where that notice is.
So, but that doesn't, will it be the individual hangar owner's responsibility to appeal, or the town's?
We don't know yet. That's what we're waiting for legal counsel to give us advice on.
So as John
It's
said,
an
when he
excellent
get-
question.
Did he say when he'd get back to us? Because
No.
we've asked him this two,
I
3
know.
weeks ago.
I'm aware. I have followed up with him once since we talked to him about it, and I figured you guys would be asking me to do that again
Put some
tomorrow.
pressure on him.
Yes.
I thought so.
When we look at Al over there, he's the chairman.
Well, we're talking about our attorney though, right? Or are we talking the airport's attorney?
Oh, as far as the attorney?
To get us responses.
Well, he's got a good point. Who's going to be doing the appealing? The assessment comes in the town's name.
And
It's very-
Michelle said we're waiting on Jonathan to get back to us, and he's had the request for 2 or 3 weeks.
I would say 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
I think the middle of the week, Tuesday or Wednesday of this prior week.
Well, after the meeting, you send him an email, I'll call right away and
Yep, I can.
leave him a message or call at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning too.
Yep, we'll do.
Drive down there if I have to, whatever it is.
Okay. And Josh, I would have to check to see if the county is willing to do the survey next year. I suspect they would, but I don't know.
Okay, with the way Josh was talking, we're still on the line for, let's just call it 20 grand. The township is. How would we go about collecting that? We're gonna have to send every hangar owner a bill and hope like heck they pay us?
Well, those are the options we have to talk about. Yeah, that's one thing, but that's a huge burden for the town. Another option would be to, Airport, have the airport pay us by January 31st, and they collect, the minute we have the tax bill, they can split it accordingly and bill their people, or, that's another option. That would eliminate needing the surveys if that was done every year. It's a huge job no matter whether they do it or we do it. And the collection, and then how do you handle people that don't pay, or, so we're fronting the money, decision for you guys.
Ultimately, if we have legal descriptions created for all of these, the county, I'll use air quoting, assured us that they would send individual items.
Yes, correct. So they would have a separate tax parcel number. The one thing that would have to happen though is if we do that, if somebody sells a hangar, you've got to tell us. so that we make sure that we transfer things over.
So these are gonna have individual parcels.
Separate tax parcel number, individually issued to each hangar owner.
Because my big fat stupid question is that pretty much equates to, in my mind, a certified survey map or a CSM, which is a zoning thing, and we are sitting in the village and we know what happened with the rezone last year. We are subdividing what we have currently into 61, let's call it, parcels. And
So what you're saying is if we go ahead with this, then suddenly now the village zoning department, through the village, is gonna have to get involved.
if they're gonna be individual parcel numbers, to me, there's no question that, because those are then legitimate legal descriptions and parcels, no different than the one we're sitting on, which has a zoning, which has, like, this snowballs unfortunately into 9,000 different things.
I have copied the village on just about everything that we've sent out so that they're aware in case someone comes in and asks them, so they're in the loop. Well, at least Lori is.
Before we go out and spend $6,800 to have somebody come, I'm not saying that ultimately isn't the right thing to do, but we've got two things against us. One is the timeline between approving the work, completing the work, and the deadline to get the information to the county. The second is the resulting, what do we do now, and did we really have any authority whatsoever to create 60 sub-parcels on the airport?
What was the county telling you?
They were telling us yes, but, you know, once again, I don't know what our attorney thinks. Let's be honest, we've had different answers from numerous people. Throughout the process, we've found out that so-and-so is wrong, and so I say it with a grain of salt.
So would it make sense to,
I think if we, first off, we have to decide, number one, or do we want to go down the route of creating individual legal descriptions? Let's just call it that for the time being. If that's the case, then I think the first call we need to make is to the building and zoning administrator for the village and say, hey, if we do this, is there a process? Because I guarantee you it isn't going to be done October 30th, that process to subdivide. The existing, I mean, we've got existing zoning, will they, I don't know their code well enough off the back of my hand to say if you can subdivide or if you can't. This also goes into one of the items that Jeff brought up at a regular meeting 2 weeks ago, which was stormwater fees. Because if that's the case, every parcel in the village of Palmyra gets a stormwater fee, which means every parcel that is created, let's just go down the fundamental thing of that now there's 60 additional parcels, then 60 additional parcels are going to get stormwater fees. And if that's the case, those individual parcels aren't going to reap the benefit of the improvements that were made last summer for the airport, because the airport was 3, let's call it, just for round numbers, right? Where there was I'll say net zero. It's not a net zero discharge, but Mr. Radecki's airport hangar doesn't have stormwater facilities inside of it to maintain stormwater runoff, which means he's technically not going to, like this mushroom cloud into what this really unfortunately can turn into.
If we, this is a dumb question, I think, if we subdivide, like you're potentially saying would need to be done, are those properties then no longer part of the airport?
Another good question.
Part of the village rather than the airport?
Or they, I mean, that's part of the mechanics of this, is that if we are leasing someone land space, right, technically the town still owns it. The people own what's on it, but not under it. So, like all of these gray areas in the last 4 days have come into my mind on how do you know, if you, I'm picking on you because you're right in front of me. But if you click on Lou's Hangar parcel, whatever number it is, and it says Lou Radecki, one would think that Lou owns that square of land, which he doesn't. He owns what's above that square of land, so all of this stuff goes into the fundamentals of how do we do this? And that was my first question of, can this wait until October? And we figure out locally for the next 30 days, how the hell are we gonna figure out to pay, fund, whatever?
Let me ask this question, I mean, something, a trailer court. The people who live there, how are they doing?
Usually it's one parcel, or, I mean,
That's been affected too.
but the curiosity would be how is,
I didn't read that part, I didn't read the trailer court, but I keep
like
seeing.
Whispering Oaks and Whitewater, just outside, across the street from the airport,
Yeah.
in Whitewater.
Well, there is two trailer courts, one next to the school system and one out in the country.
Yeah. From the uniqueness of ultimately how those people are handling it, I don't know. Part of the background with this is that the town itself fundamentally is tax exempt. So, different than a trailer park, someone or an LLC or cooperative, whatever, owns the parcel and they're not exempt at all, period, so they can figure out how to do the mechanism behind that, kind of at their own whim, but I hate to say pump the brakes, because we
Go
don't
ahead, Al.
really have any momentum.
My question is really twofold. One of them is, why isn't this the responsibility of the taxing authority? Clerk had sent me some information about where it said that the assessor for the village could make tax designations for each of those properties.
He did.
And my question is, if he did, then why are we doing it, why are we discussing doing it again?
Because technically, he's not qualified to write legal descriptions. I remember that from my law office days.
But it kind of sounded like that little blurb that you sent me was
Yeah,
that
I
they were
know.
waiving that in this particular instance. And then the other thing, the other argument that I have is that we have a taxing authority that didn't notice any of us
I know.
to be able to approach them and argue that assessment, which is illegal. So they've already kind of crossed the line. And, I'm thinking this is bucket of crap is their problem.
We talking the village or the county?
Village. Not the town. If they're gonna send you one tax bill, I would pay it. Just that plain and simple. Split it up and do it right, or we're not paying it.
Well, that's probably something that we should have asked Jonathan a question and have it noticed with some sort of, if that was an option for us to do, have Jonathan notice them with some sort of formal official letter, not just not pay it.
Well, I agree with you there, obviously. What is, I realize you're not in the meeting mode, but you're here, what, think we should put it on the airport agenda about the airport?
Here again is another situation where it's beyond our scope.
Wait, let me finish what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Just simply, okay, we have all these assessments, and obviously the airport manager has all the names with the different lots and everything. Are you, would be a consideration for the airport commission to build it separately? To build each hangar owner.
Well,
Separately.
yes, but that gets into, that's beyond kind of our scope also, because we're not a taxing authority. It all goes back to the village, it really does. And if they're gonna do this, they should stand up and do the right thing. That's kind kind of my opinion on it for what it's worth.
Can't disagree with it.
You know, I can't understand why the town would have to pay, and I live in the village, okay, but I can't understand why the town would be responsible for splitting up their tax base, and because you get nothing out of it. I mean, it already upsets us that we're paying taxes to the village and getting nothing out of it.
Go ahead, Lou.
By what authority does the village have to tax wholesale all the buildings on a parcel of land? Is that done, is that ever done?
Well, this is a new experience for me, obviously, Josh, in your municipal endeavors and work.
That's part of what the question really comes down to, because they used to collect personal property tax, which you guys pay.
And we get a bill for that every year, so does that mean that as of this year, we will no longer get personal property?
That is correct.
So maybe we'll get nothing. And then the other question is, to be crass about, why do we need to pay it? What happens if we don't pay it?
That's an answer we don't have in front of us today, but
Don't read Polter.
Yeah. No, they don't have, they're not working on individual hangars.
You're taking notes.
I'm doing my best.
Is it, appreciate that.
I think Jonathan should have been here to answer some of these questions.
Well, you know as well as I do that this came out quick,
I get it.
just because we needed to discuss it, period. But
We're here.
I'll be right down there tomorrow. I'm gonna call when I leave you. You can call, please, email. And we don't hear anything by 9:30 in the morning, let me know I'm going down there and see that gal. Is Dawn? Is it Dawn?
I didn't know you had a clerical support person, so that was, I
Yeah.
thought you worked on his own.
Well,
This,
there's-
I mean, this change was, though, from the state standpoint, happened January 1st, so I'm not sure why.
Well, we didn't get any notices.
Right, and I understand that, but is this, I don't know, some little ploy to now hurry you guys up to make a rash decision?
But honestly, if I put dollars to donuts, I think it was a lack of fulfillment, how's that sound, on potential
So they didn't know either.
implementation.
They didn't know what was happening either, or look into it.
And ultimately, they're hiring an assessor to do the assessments, no different than we use
Sure.
Catalyst, and essentially throw your trust in the subcontractor to do what needs to be done and everything. I mean, the curious part of this whole thing, so going back to Lou's question, we've got it's a generalized legal brief from Boardman and Clark when this kind of came through. And it's not a legal opinion, it's just a legal brief. It just summarized that in '23, Wisconsin passed statute 7017 sub 3, which requires manufactured and mobile home buildings, improvements and fixtures on leased land, exempt land, or managed forest land to be assessed as real property. The new law applies to aircraft hangars owned by private individuals or businesses located in a municipal airport. Starting in, starting in 2024, the improvements or aircraft hangars will be taxed as real property. As part of the new law, assessors must create separate tax parcels for each building, improvement, and fixtures and assess them as real property. The owner of the aircraft hangars will then receive a tax bill for the real property. It goes on. Many municipalities around the state have already, or will go through a similar process, which is new to everyone. There has been some debate on what type of document is required to be executed and recorded to create these new tax parcels. And that's part of where the argument comes in, is what do we need to physically do? But my caution or question, hesitation is that if we create new, if the village comes in and says, hey, now we've got ZYUP 0001, 002, 03, 04, 0, all the way up to 60, that's their choice to, I'll say, subdivide. It's not ours, right? But if we go through the process, we spend $7,000 to try to do all of this, record it, and come to find that none of that matters, or that we open Pandora's box on all of the rest of the accompanying things. To me,
Yeah, I just,
Authorizing to do it is one thing. You know, hey, we agree we should create individual parcels, or individual parcels should be created. That's probably the best way to say that. If we were in favor of that, great, we've got the support. Second is, where's the money gonna come from? But third, what really is step number one? Which
yeah, and I agree with you.
is potentially
But,
separate.
With this next statement, I'm not saying this meeting was premature. What I'm saying is, what we hope to get out of the meeting is premature. Sorry, it's past my bedtime. We need to get legal answers before we can decide anything. So, to Al's point, to the things we've talked about, you know, do we have legal grounds to push back on the village for non-notification, so that we have time, or the hangar owners or the airport, whoever has time to appeal, for us to figure out the questions you raised, parceling it out and subdividing it, how does that change potentially the airport? All of that, we need, before we can decide how to move forward, we need these legal answers, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
I was just wondering if there's a judicial court of law that there should be addressing this and educate the matter, because you don't know if local officials have the authority to create rules or guidelines, and if the state created this, I don't think they realize that Palmyra is kind of a unique airport. Most of the airports are town-owned and are in the town property. This is an airport owned by a town, but it's in the village. And I don't think they had ever addressed that issue before. And I'm just wondering if you make some kind of an appeal, it would push this matter off, like Josh said, and give us more time.
Yes, and that's where you're right, and that's where I was going by, which judicial authority, I don't know where it will be, that's why we need Jonathan.
Right.
But your point, I think, is valid too.
My question has to do with the word notification. Who is supposed to notify, first of all? And even if they did not notify the proper people, whether it be the town, the village, or whoever it is, if that notification was sent, who was it sent to? And when was it done? We should know that. If they can't identify it, we're not notified.
I think
We
that's
just have that on my
legal-
email, I can't.
The legal advice as well.
It was sent to Town of Palmyra, under it was the word airport, and then it was W1125, Highway 106. So
How did it not get here then?
But there's a
Then
PO
what-
box.
we have a PO
That's
box.
why. Trust me, my parents have a PO
Yeah.
box, and it is the dumbest thing you've ever heard. But if you address something to a physical address, it will
Doesn't come
never get delivered. And that's essentially what happened.
So is that on us, or is that on the village for having the wrong address?
Well, I worked with assessments for 29 years, and I'm sorry to tell you that they aren't sympathetic. You know, what they're going to say, it's not for me to say, but I've heard it for 29 years, they're going to say, it's our responsibility to send you the notice, it's not our responsibility to be sure you received it.
But if we don't know it's sent,
Right. Be prepared for
this is
that.
all stuff.
Well, I mean, one dumber than that is technically this building is in the village of Palmyra, and we still have a W address on it.
Well,
There is no W1125 State 106 in the village of Palmyra, I guarantee you that, period. That postal doesn't, which probably contributes partially to the fact that automated machines read it and it isn't there, so we were never assigned a 1125 North 2nd Street address to the building. Our problem? No. Our problem? Yes.
Okay, providing we get some answers from our attorney,
Timely answers.
timely answers, that's tomorrow. Hopefully for some of them. We should probably table this, should it be placed on the agenda again Wednesday?
And just so you know,
You're not here.
I'm not here and,
I won't be here until, probably, well, depending on how long the budget meeting goes, till the second half, because I have that village meeting I have to go to, that is scheduled. the Lower Spring Lake meeting. So I'll be here when that's done, whenever that is, and if the meeting's still going on, I'll participate.
So do you think we should discuss the budget and then when you arrive, go into speaking about this?
If we have Jonathan's feedback, and I would suggest John, any meeting going forward that this is on the agenda, I'd recommend Jonathan be here. Or at least to request me for him to be here.
to request him to be here
I don't know
Wednesday.
if you guys agree with that or not, but when you sitting here going, we don't know what we don't know.
I don't know that he's gonna have any, I mean, there's, aside from what should we, the town, do, there's a dozen other questions of what happens if we do, that I don't think we're gonna have answers
Right,
for
if
on
we do
Wednesday.
go forward, like you said, it may be creating a whole big,
Right,
To me, Jonathan should lay out what options we have from a legal perspective, and what are the potential downstream impacts of those options, then we take the options and we decide what we want to do. He just needs to let us know legally what are our options, right?
right, and I'm gonna make this statement, I think this is the village's problem, they should be assessing and paying for the whole thing. That's my opinion, is.
Donna,
Isn't that what you read?
Mhm.
Was it the assessor? And I would assume that's the village.
it says the assessor, so it doesn't really specify the taxing jurisdiction's assessor, so, that,
Do you think there would be some value to talking to other municipal airports and find out what they're doing?
Well, you have to find one though that is
I'll call,
owned by the town, but
In the village.
Not necessarily, there's a process initial process that could be of some value, regardless of the municipal boundary at this point.
how about you pilots, you know any situation similar?
East Troy is owned by the village of East Troy.
The village, but it's in the village.
Correct. But they still do the same process.
Yeah.
But we wonder how are airports of that size, or how are they handling this whole property tax thing? Because the question I wanted to ask, and maybe we could pass it on to the attorney, is how do you take airport land, which is airport land, one big chunk, and are you actually allowed to break that up into parcels? I'm kind of questioning the legality of this whole thing, really.
Well, what I'm seeing is when personal property was taxed, everybody got an individual bill. So in that case, I'll just make the statement, why doesn't everybody get an individual bill now on what the new assessment is? And it's done with.
That'd be way easier than doing these parcels, which you're breaking up land if you don't own as hangar owners. That's not our parcel. I don't see how that even works.
You realize we don't want to be sitting here
Yeah,
either.
exactly. But just to pass that on to the legal department.
I'm sure it just has the definition of what real estate and personal, what, it's written of how things are taxed.
And the airport actually consists of more than one parcel right now. It's just a tax number issue to identify.
Sure, but breaking that up into parcels as defined by where a hangar footprint is not sure worth asking.
This is why we need Jonathan. And
Yeah.
my concern is, we've got a very short amount of time. And I don't want the town to jump to a decision and make a decision and have something happen that has downstream impacts that we're not aware of what those could be right now. I don't know, I don't think we're making good decisions. I think, at least right now, until we have more information from John and everything, I'd be more in favor of, if this can be pushed out till next year, we can still do the same thing next year. We just pay it, figure out a way to build the hangar owners for it, and then we have a year to figure this out, as opposed to rushing it. But that's only my thought right now, based on not having any legal input from Jonathan.
quite honestly, I don't think that, I think we gotta look at what I'm gonna call a worst case scenario, which is having no input within the next 10 calendar days. Right? No no concrete, this is what's gonna happen if, or if, which quite honestly, I don't foresee us having a clear enough path forward in 10 days to say, this is the 40-year solution to this. So I think we need, above and beyond all of the real to property tax questions, is to start with the actual, call it damage control plan, which is how do we handle 2024? Because there's a host of potential issues with even doing that. The existing leases say real property or assessments. It doesn't say real estate, that the hangar owners are responsible in all the leases. The leases, from what I can tell, were never physically approved by the town, which our local ordinance says needs to happen. Who knows what did or didn't happen in between all of that. Can, because I said it 2 weeks ago, because we have village authority or village powers, can we special assess leasees and make it an assessment and deal with 2024? And everybody, whoever, whatever their value is, gets their individualized assessment from us, not a tax bill. We pay the tax bill, we deal with the collections piece of it. It's a one-time, it is what it is.
Agreed.
But I don't know if we can even technically do that
So we need Jonathan again.
from
And
the
one thing
lease.
I don't wanna do is have us pay his first year, and then that sets a precedent where we can't change it after that, right? So we have to figure that out too.
The next big thing is that from the airport, called the budgeting standpoint, the airport has been part of the general fund. Not to get in the weeds, but can we set up a special fund similar to police, fire, EMS? Can we collect under multiple different things that would net defect of what we're up against for budget for the next one?
Yeah, Rob, you guys have, the village has a trailer court, 2 different trailer courts in the village?
Yeah, trailer courts.
So how, could you have your attorney?
I just asked.
Yeah, right, and you have your attorney find out how they're getting billed and have them do the hangars the same way? Because I don't see a difference between a hangar and a trailer.
Well, the property though is in the village.
Who owns it?
By the town. And
Who's
that's
the owner?
Exactly.
There is a difference between a trailer and a hangar, because a trailer can be put on wheels and driven away.
Well, only in that little nitpicky thing, but the idea is.
It's not a little thing.
Piece of property sitting on somebody else's property, and the hangar is sitting on somebody else's property also.
But the trailer court is on private land,
Correct.
correct? And the
Correct.
airport is on municipal land,
Correct.
which is exempt
But
from
there's-
tax.
Right, well, why they get taxed then?
Well,
Okay, that's enough.
they're trying to tax you guys.
I suggest that you and I and Michelle have a meeting with the attorney. We go down there with all these facts and everything, written down, or questions rather. And you and I have a sit down with him as soon as possible. What do you gentlemen think of that?
That's a good idea.
And obviously, we're not gonna make any decisions today on this. So, but just to make a statement, the simplest thing to do is, we pay the tax this year, bill every hangar owner, and hope like hell everybody pays us.
Well,
That's,
I hate to put it on your airport commission either, but one way or the other is to look at what are the mechanisms available. Are we, meaning Michelle, because we aren't, is Michelle gonna send 60 individual assessments, tax bills, whatever you wanna call it, to those airport hangar owners? Or is it gonna be a collections question or problem for the airport commission?
well, right now, the airport manager takes care of all the leases, so, I was gonna say, maybe he should send out all the bills, and collect the money, be responsible for it.
Addendums.
Yeah, we pay them very well as well.
Zero?
Yes.
And we'll need Al and Jeff to work with us to amend or addendum the existing leases too, to get the language correct.
Yeah, one thing I did see on the lease that was provided, or one of them, it's Town of Palmyra, has to sign that. So back in the day, it probably should have been a Stuart Calkins. Don Hagan signs it on behalf of the Town of Palmyra. He wasn't on the town board, was he?
The existing leases are only since like April of last year.
No, there's older ones.
Multi-versions.
There's all kinds of different
Yes,
leases.
different times.
Well, I think there's really only a couple different leases out there
Right.
right now
There's
at
only a
this
couple.
point.
There's more than.
Some of them are older, and then some of them been updated.
You're talking from
And
language.
some of cranky old guys like myself refuse to sign the new one because I still have time on the old one. So that's kind of where it's at. That's another bucket of fish.
Most of the files have a one-page in. This is a 6-page lease, and all I have is the last page.
Just a signature page?
In the file?
Can you get us all 6 pages of it?
I've been trying to.
It doesn't exist anymore?
I'm sure
Well,
it
it
is.
exists somewhere.
Which box?
Issue for a different day.
Yeah.
Short and sweet, Jim.
I don't want to sound picky, and I'm not saying it that way, but my question is, I don't know the town attorney